What is up, everyone? I can't stress this enough. We're so back. This is it's going to be episode 59, maybe 59 and 60, maybe 59A, 59B. We don't know, but we're so excited. It is the annual WNBA season preview, and we had to call the best in the business for this occasion. We welcome back to the show friends of the podcast. They are together the hosts of The Dunker Spot, which is, for my money, the best basketball podcast in the land. And no, I'm not just saying this because I am looking at their faces right now. Uh, Nekias Duncan, Steve Jones, how is it going? Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh man, thanks for having us. I am doing well. I am running on fumes. It's been a very long day already with a lot of hashtag content, but in a good mood. Always a pleasure to talk hoops with y'all. Excited to see at least one half of you this weekend as the Aces take on the Liberty in the season opener. I'll throw a little bit more shade a little bit later, but happy to be here, ready to have some fun.
Well, I was gonna say I'm feeling good, feeling great, but we got that phenomenal intro and you're throwing shade in the first 3 seconds of the pod on
Look,
top of the slight flex. I'm tired because I've been doing a lot, but I'm here. I'm just happy to be here, and I'm glad we got Nekias to waive his no Steve on the guest appearance clause.
I,
Wow.
I,
Tense negotiations, but we got it done last minute.
Look, I deserve the shade. I'm just gonna address this up top. I have a wedding in Arizona this weekend, and thus will not be able to be at Barclays Center for opening day, Aces Liberty. I've got Benai Delaney, I've got Asia Wilson jersey in the background for anyone who's listening. Nekias has got an Asia tee on. I've got an Asia tee on. We're very on brand right now. Let's just say that. I'm trying to overcompensate for the fact that I will not be in attendance, but it is devastating. I'm quite bummed.
Our attendance record has been a little bit shaky to start the season. Sandy Brondello called us out the other day because the Liberty put together an incredible event, which was a media appreciation day where they just flipped the script and all of the players got to watch the media try to go through dribbling drills, shooting drills, and it ended with knockout where Sandy took down Doug Feinberg in the final. And the very first thing that we do when we show up the next day is Sandy was like, "Were you guys ducking the smoke? Why weren't you out there? I would have beat you too." And it's like, it was in response to a question Owen asked, and she looked at me and she's like, "You had a great time on your honeymoon in Croatia? You didn't want to come here and get your ankle snatched?" And I was like, "I do. What did I do?" So we are going to be better. This is our pledge from this point forward, starting after opening weekend for Owen.
Yeah, it's true. Also, Sandy Brondello somehow, and I appreciate this so much. I ran a half marathon on the first day of training camp, and she somehow made it back to her desk that I ran the race in an Asia Wilson jersey. And so the first day of training camp, she's like, "Hey, congrats on the half marathon, but like, come on with that jersey. What are we doing?" And I was like, "Man, I'm lucky to be in market with a coach who can give you a hard time in a very very friendly way. We all know what it is."
That is incredible. That is incredible. I'm
No.
glad I'm not alone for wondering what your availability is. So that's cool. We're all on the same page here.
Yeah, there is an attendance. We got to punch in and punch out because it is busy in New York. I think let's stay there. Let's start with the Eastern Conference and let's start with the Liberty. We had a really strong mathematical formula that we put together for the order of teams we're going to talk about, which is just conference standings from last season. So we are going to start with the Liberty, and I wanted to talk to you guys about something that I don't know how much of it you've seen on the tape, but just a lot of what we've heard being in market is that they are pushing they're working on a new, what they call new, five out system, which is in a lot of ways not very different from what they've been running in my eyes for the last couple of years. But Niara Sabli called it like they almost had like a four out before because they did often have somebody that was posting up inside. But now it is five, and there have already been some talk. John Quell's like, make sure you find me if I'm going to duck in because that's where I'm most effective. And I guess I just want to pass it on to you guys because my concerns are, as we're seeing this 3-point revolution make its way over to the W. And I know it's been happening, but it's going to happen even more this season. What would be some initial or potential concerns with a system like that when you have one of, if not the most effective post player in Jonquel when she gets 2 feet into the paint?
I think as far as potential concerns, like I would wonder, like just in general, what the tempo is going to look like if you're going to that style. You don't want to risk getting stagnant. Like New York has such a collective size advantage over most of the league. Like I don't worry as much about them versus switches as I would with other teams, but like that's something that would be top of mind for me. And quickly alluding to the John Quill point, like when do you kind of sprinkle in the post touches for her? Like those would probably be the two early ones for me, but ultimately the talent level is so high for New York. Like the opening possession against Connecticut is, hey, let's get Sabrina and Jonquel doing off-ball stuff with a clear side, and it's two to the ball, and then it's a pass to Jonquel. It's like, one is Connecticut, but two, that doesn't seem fun to deal with, honestly. And this was the game without Breanna Stewart, and so like it's. I also find it hard to be super concerned with it conceptually. I guess the other thing I would add is because they have that size, like they can just mash you on the offensive glass. And so completely punting on that conceptually with 5-out spacing is interesting to me. But if they score well enough inside, if you see the rim pressure improve, the efficiency is going to be there. But if you're getting more rim attempts because of wider driving lanes, you're getting more slips to the basket with that kind of spacing, you're going to offset, a quote unquote lack of offensive rebounding because you're just scoring more efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
I think what stood out to me is it's more, hey, we're gonna have one roller, and so everyone else just space. And so there was like a play against Connecticut where Sabali and John Cole were in at the same time, and they put two on the ball, and Sabrina was just a skip to Sabali into a handoff, and I was like, oh, okay, you're trying to help your flow in different ways, and because they have so much versatility and they can space people in different ways, I think one, it opens up the fact that they can have one roller, and two, it might give Jonquel time to seal, especially if she's involved in more of these pin downs for Sabrina, as they've worked to get her more off ball this year. If they're going with more, like, it just feels more like an automatic. If you don't have it or you're not involved in the action, just please get out. Like, just stay out there and we'll kind of flow. So I think that's kind of the intriguing part. Because I think if you're going to have moments where Stewie drives, how long does Stewie hold? Does Stewie post up? Does Stewie get out? Like, I think that's more if we don't have anything, please space the floor. And it's more just to kind of keep the flow up. I think it'll be interesting to see how they marry that with their tempo and their movement sets. But I don't think it's the end of the world. I think it's kind of trying to figure out how to keep pressure on teams throughout their lineups.
I think that's a really good point to make too about kind of the early actions that we're going to see. And Natasha Cloud has talked about how like she wants to be intentional, not just at kind of decelerating when there isn't something on that first action, having that composure to reset. Because I think a lot of times, if you don't have those vets out there that are, comfortable with, Sandy Bardella always says, good to great, and just making that extra pass, which is not, as you guys alluded to, an issue that the Liberty have much issue with because of the talent on the roster. But I think it's going to mean that everyone has to be comfortable at some point being an entry passer, because if JJ sees a window and wants to go for a quick deep seal, we saw Kennedy Burke find her very quickly in that game against Connecticut at one point, like move that ball to the strong side and then just like duck her in quickly. And I think some of that timing might take a little while to get used to. But yeah, I like the idea of Stewie, just because she starts on the perimeter, maybe having some room to operate and not settling for some of the 3-point shots that we've seen her take and struggle with for the better part of the last year and a half. So post surgery, hopefully she's got a little bit more of that lift back. But Owen and I were talking about the other day that she used to be devastating in transition on those pull-ups, and that just hasn't been the case for a while now. So I think like that's something that I'm gonna look at is just kind of the shot selection if you're giving everyone a green light, which could be a concern.
Yeah. The guys.
I think quickly just bouncing off of the Steve point about the double big lines. I'm glad he hit on that because like what a luxury it is for the Liberty one to just have Jonquel Jones who can space or just dive and bully people. But the fact that you can go Jonquel and Niara Sabali together and space both of them because you have the shooting, but also Niara's more than willing to catch a pass and attack from the perimeter
Mhm.
or just flow into a handoff very quickly. She's very fluid and comfortable on the perimeter as well. So you have the element of size that really pops defensively while also maintaining that spacing. And if you try to help off of Niara, she can still punish you in that way. Like it's a testament to her growth and yet another sign of how dangerous this Liberty team is.
Forget the two big lineup. How much are we going to see three big after what happened in game five? That's what I want to know. We need Sandy to run out the three big lineup before the season is on the line. All right, we're moving on to the Connecticut Sun. Little news with the Connecticut Sun recently, but that's for another podcast. This is going to be an interesting team. They are not going to be good. I will just say that right now. I'm sorry to the Connecticut Sun. They will not be good. But what can you look for if you're a Sun fan in this team? Because I liked their draft quite a bit. I actually weirdly like that Marina Mabry is there now, just from a sense of it seemed like she did a very professional thing of like having that reset of, okay, I'm not getting the trade that it seemed like everyone else was getting. I'm not going to the Liberty. How can I make the best of this and be a pro and like ball out? What do you look for if you're a Sun fan to, glean any sort of positives from this massive transitional season?
I would say Tina Charles Connecticut connection as a concept is going to be top of mind. Marina Mabry bucket getting, and then as we get into some of the young players, I am a huge Olivia Nelson-Adota fan, so I am super
Yes.
excited to see her. I would imagine she's going to start alongside Tina Charles, but just seeing the offensive usage perk up, seeing the defense pop in a real way. Her preseason minutes have been really good on that end, particularly in that Liberty game that we've been talking a little bit about. And you already mentioned the rookies. Like, what is Sanaya Rivers going to look like when she finally gets out there? Like, how's that athleticism and defense and open floor playmaking going to pop for her? What is Anissa Morrow going to look like? Like, just what is she going to look like? It's really weird because I feel like it was a similar conversation to Angel where couldn't keep her off the glass, just relentless on the interior, etc. How's it going to translate to the league? And now you kind of have proof of concept with Angel. Not that they're one-to-one comparisons player-wise, but I am curious to see, like, will it be a similar bit? Will we see more of the ball skills pop for Anissa Morrow early on? Like, will we see some of the high post passing or something from her? Like, I'm just excited to learn more about her. So I think general youth excitement. Um, Again, Olivia Nelson-Adota as a concept. Want to see her be more aggressive offensively. We got the quick window into JC Sheldon saying, well, I'll take all the shots. That's fine. And so I want to see if she keeps that up in addition to what she brings defensively. So like there are some bright spots here. I'm with like I don't know if they're going to go like 24-20 this year, but there's a lot of intrigue with the younger pieces and the veterans have some juice too. So there's some stuff.
He's Nekias. I was hoping you would have forgotten about JC Sheldon, so I could have snuck that one in at least.
You could also talk about JC Sheldon. It's fine.
But the freight train rolls on. I think it's just what does it look like? What are they building offensively? Are we going to get some more movement defensively? Just it's going to be different. You've been such a stalwart. It's been so consistent with that core. Now, okay, what is the next version of the Sun? I think the development of JC Sheldon will be huge. How many times is Marina Mabry going to shoot the ball and then Millie Rock? But I think you can experiment with different lineups and kind of have, Tina Charles and Marina who can stabilize things. You can get the most out of Ono. JC Sheldon get on ball, and then you have the rookies. So I think it's just what is this going to look like? What's the growth? And this is one of those teams that you watch over the course of a season to see what's different. How are they competing? Are they getting better? That's kind of where I'm at. There's some teams that are youngish or maybe towards the bottom per se that, okay, they look good right now. What's it look like when more teams have tape on them? I think the Sun are probably the reverse. It may look a little rough at the beginning, but I think as they compete and play, they'll end up being a team like, I don't really want to go to Connecticut. Like, we can win, but this might not be fun. I think that's kind of the hope as far as developing the next step for the Sun.
I mean, a lot of that might just be Uncasville and knowing that it's going to take you 15 hours from wherever you are to get there. But
Guys' favorite city.
I do think that
those Ubers, man.
I do think that it's two good vets to have if you're a young team where there might be 5 seconds on the clock and you got to give someone a grenade. Is that Tina Charles and Marina Mabry are two players that are very happy to oblige you and take that shot and create a good look. So you can see what you have with some of these younger pieces. And I too have been very high on Olivia Nelson-Ododa. And like going back to college, I worry this is that reverse UConn bias where I'm like in the Big East, she's not seeing any other bigs. So yeah, she's running the floor really well and she's grabbing offensive rebounds, but what's it going to look like when she faces the SEC, or what is it going to look like when she turns pro? And she has that same motor and she really does get after it. And JC Sheldon, yeah, if she's like, cool, you're going to give me the keys, I'm going to take this thing for a spin. I love that too. So there are some bright pieces. And then yeah, seeing what these rookies can do. So there's the sun has not set yet, and I hated that as I said it.
I
Um,
thought it was a clean shot.
I know I just gotta power through. So let's move on to the Indiana Fever, who by my estimation might be the team with the most external pressure in the WNBA this season. I just think that because there are going to be more eyeballs on them than literally anybody else, and you could put a whole bunch of other teams and a whole bunch of other leagues into that category too. Year two Caitlin, I think, is going to be in the MVP conversation at the end of the year, which means that they're going to have to be a top four team because just by looking at all of us, by media standards, that is a prerequisite if you're going to be in that MVP conversation. But they went out this offseason and got better. They added, they added a lot of pieces, but I'll talk about mostly DeWanna Bonner and Natasha Howard filling out that starting five and Stephanie White, bringing in Steph White, who has already proven to us that she's happy to come to a contender and put her stamp on that. I think all of that kind of brings some pressure. And you're building a team. Re-signing Kelsey Mitchell was huge,
Mhm.
but you are building a team around Caitlin. What do you see year two Caitlin looking like at its potential ceiling?
Ooh, potential ceiling is best offensive player in the league, if not best player in the league. Like, that's the ceiling. Like, I don't know if she like officially eclipses Asia plus fee this year, so I'm not gonna put that on her in terms of external pressure. But like, if you're talking actual ceiling, that scoring and playmaking blend is just rare. Like, you just don't get it at that volume and from that depth to strain defenses that far from the basket and in that many ways. And so if it all hits, it is transition hit aheads to insert 8 different Fever players that you can list here, in addition to Caitlin boogieing off the bounce. Something that Steve pointed out quite a bit last season was how good of a driver she was from day one. And people were talking about like, what is the 3 point percentage going to land at? What are the turnovers? Yada yada. The fact that she was already winning drives early on seemed to be like a pretty good sign. And as you got through that opening, 8 or 9 game stretch where they played those games in like 13 days or whatever ridiculous number it was, got to breathe a little bit. It's like, oh, well, now the timing feels a little bit better. She's still driving. The shots are starting to fall more. This isn't fun to deal with. This isn't fun to play against. So no, Caitlin can blow the roof off of this.
I think Caitlin Clark will likely be in the MVP discussion. Sorry, Nekias, you're gonna prepare for that. So I think for me, it's just kind of understanding. Okay, she has an understanding of what teams are gonna throw at her, and so knowing the coverages that she's gonna see, understanding how to attack the space, the rejects, as far as the drives go, as far as getting downhill and being able to maybe deliver a blow or not just drive to kick, drive to finish, and how that impacts things. We know what she could do in transition. So I think her impact is going to be big, and this team is probably better suited. I mean, if you have more lineups with more spacing and Caitlin Clark can run pick and roll, that's a positive. It was funny because I watched their first preseason game. I was like, boy, this is a lot of movement. This seems really fun. Like, they are just backdoor cuts, staggers. They are moving their bodies. And then Caitlin Clark came back and it was pick and roll. And I was like, oh, yeah, they can do that too. So kind of the more automatic nature, Aaliyah Boston continuing to grow in the short roll and being able to make decisions as far as driving and kicking, and just having people like Natasha Howard and DeWanna Bonner who can know exactly what to do in those situations, whether they have a shot or they can make an extra play. That's good for the Fever, and I think their lineups are going to be strong. But I think Caitlin Clark's going to be the old straw that stirs the drink. I'm
Any concerns about the shooting for this team? Because I think that I think Caitlin's gravity helps with so much of it, but when you're talking about the drive and kick, sometimes the shot profiles on some of the pieces here are not the strongest. So do you worry about any potential bad habits or issues that can just crop up from some of that movement not generating the best offense.
I get more lowercase c concern, I suppose, for me, because like I know Kelsey Mitchell can bomb away, though I guess she is dealing with what the hand or the finger thing. So I guess we'll see what the early portion of the season looks like for her on that front. But like I trust Kelsey. I ultimately trust Caitlin, but if a majority of her threes are coming off the bounce, it is going to be a situation where like you pull up basketball reference, her 3-point percentage is not going to be indicative of how good of a shooter she is. And so like in a literal sense, if she has one of those 3 for 10s, 3 for 11s, if teams are helping off of Natasha Howard, if DeWanna Bonner's having one of her 2 for 6s because she's taking them from 30 feet out, like in a literal sense, like, yeah, you may get to some. How did the Fever lose that one? They were 9 of 33 from three. That doesn't seem great. Some of those. But overall, there is still the strain that they put on your defense. And I feel like more often than not, that is just going to win out. But yeah, it's not an A plus shooting group, to your point.
I think to add to Nekias' point, it's probably the shot quality, like the type of shots that they're able to generate and who's able to take them. And I think they have enough moving pieces. Whereas last year, you kind of felt, and I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way, hey, is Lexi going to shoot the ball? And then it flipped to when Lexi decided, yes, I'm shooting and I will not miss for about the last half of the season, if you don't mind. So, being able to kind of spread the looks around to where you can, Sophie can space, DeWanna can space, Natasha Howard can space, Lexi can space. They're going to be able to have different people take those shots. And it's just, okay, are we getting these because they're quick in transition, or are these like genuine shots that we've generated based on our flow, pick and roll, drive and kick, really forcing the defense to rotate and make them pay that way? I think the balance for Indiana is probably more important for me. How much transition are we getting? How many post-ups are we getting? How much pick and roll? How much quote-unquote isolation? I think if they can move the chess pieces around that way, they're going to have nights where maybe the three-point shot hits them, but is it because teams said y'all can't shoot or because they miss shots?
Just a couple quick Fever notes from me before we move on. I'm glad, Steve, you mentioned Aaliyah Boston in the short roll. That was like my favorite growth arc of year two for her was her improvement there. And I'm so excited to see what she does with Steph White with this group. When you get 2 first-round picks in 2 drafts where you have transcendent players at the top of the draft, you become a contender. That is generally how professional basketball works. So they got the number 1 pick in 2 years when you would really want to have the number 1 pick. And now, even though it's year 2 and year 3 for those 2 players, like the time already is now. The window is open, which is really fun. And then defensively, the length of the front court, like DeWanna, Natasha, Aaliyah is just a really, really fun, fearsome front court to go against if you're the opponents. And lastly, we got to shout out friend of the pod, Sydney Colson, who I think will be fantastic for this team as she is for every team she plays for. All right. Yeah.
Oh, one very quick thing before we move on, because you mentioned the Fever defense. Them going full court pressure as often as they did in the preseason was not something that I was anticipating.
Oh,
I am excited to see like how sustainable that is for them. And just in general, as defenses across the W have gotten more aggressive, not necessarily full court pressure for it, but we're going to have bigs at the level. We're going to hedge some like Seattle does, Connecticut has, et cetera, et cetera. Moving to a 44 game regular season, I am curious to see how teams balance trying to dictate turns in that way with general wear and tear in the season.
yep. Yeah, I'm going to be very just around the league, like tracking minute totals, which is something that I nerdily love to do all the time. I'm always calling for more Marquisha Davis minutes in a 25-point game in June. So like we're gonna be there again, even more so with 44 games, and I look forward to it. Moving on to a team that I am so excited to watch, maybe the most just in terms of like intrigue and how's it gonna look. The Atlanta Dream. Carl Smesko in as head coach. And this is going to be one of those like bad reporter questions. Like, talk about what it's going to look like. Because I don't have anything other than I just want to hear 2 of the smartest basketball minds try to reckon with what this roster and this coach. How's it going to look on the court? I think Ryan Howard is poised to have like a tremendous, massive season. I don't think she really gets enough love in general. But there were questions amongst smart basketball people about the idea of a Smesco offense and the compatibility of that with Brittany Griner and Brianna Jones. Now, personally, watching Brittany Griner last year in Phoenix, she was already stretching out to behind the 3-point line. It was very small sample size, but she was looking very comfortable hitting threes. I'm of the mind that it's going to work. I love how good Tahina Pau Pau already looks in the preseason. So, Nekias, talk about the Atlanta Dream, will you?
I will do my best. My favorite form of question in the media sphere, as we all know. But no, in all seriousness, the spacing popped immediately for me because I had similar questions. You hire Carl Smith, okay, they want to.
Boy, did you?
As Steve can attest to it, it's like, okay, they're hiring this coach. They want to spread the floor. They want to shoot more threes. Something that I learned today as I was finishing it up, an article that's going to be out probably by the time this episode releases. The Atlanta Dream have not finished in the top 6 in offensive ratings since 2014.
Sheesh. Are you saying they're the Orlando Magic of the WNBA?
It's closer than I would like. So I was like, they just haven't had a league average or better defense in over a decade. This is kind of wild. I was like, okay, they want to spread it out. And then we are signing Brittany Griner and Bree Jones. It's like, okay, these two are really good basketball players. How are you bumping up the 3-point volume in a meaningful way with these two? Like, to your point, like we've seen Brittany Griner step out. We've seen Bree Jones experiment with more middies. She's taking some spot up threes. But like, how are we bumping this up from, I'll have to pull up the exact numbers, but just for the sake of conversation, let's say the Dream were like 9th in 3-point attempts per game. Okay, how does that move us from 9th to 4th? As a quick example. But you get to the preseason and it's a lot more spread. Like the opening possession of that game, they go Jordan Canada, Brittany Griner, middle pick and roll. And it is Ryan Howard and Bree Jones just kind of cramped together in the left wing. I was like, wait, this is interesting. Jordan Canada just has the widest driving lane possible. And as this is happening, Bree Jones is kind of diving to the basket or driving to the dunker spot area. It's like, okay, is this what they want to try to do, or is that just the opening set? And as the quarter progresses, it was a lot of that kind of spacing and a lot of that kind of, in general, weak side movement for Atlanta. If we've got something going on the right side, a BG pick and roll or a Bree Jones pick and roll, she's a screener, or a post up for one of those two, the other is spaced on the wing, and those players are exchanging at the same time the action's happening. And as we finally got to one of the Brittany Griner post ups, I was like, okay, it's good to keep the weak side engaged. Hey, wait a minute. Have they been able to double team a single post touch that the Dream have had so far? I was like, that might be part of the secret sauce. Like, in addition to Brittany Griner just knocking down threes early in that game and stuff, it's like, okay, they're doing a much better job of staying out of each other's way while also engaging the weak side of the defense. And if you can win on the inside to that degree and then also ramp up the volume, if you're getting those threes for those two, if you're getting the off-ball stuff for Ryan, getting the off-ball stuff for Alicia, et cetera, like that feels like the concept of what they want to do. They have to sustain it. This was against a young and active, but ultimately not very good Washington team. But I want to see more of what this looks like. I want to see a larger sample because of the concept is sound to me based off of what that opening was. But again, teams are going to get tape on that, et cetera. We're going to see what it looks like in game 8, game 10, game 12.
There it is. There, I was waiting for the Dream doubt to be sprinkled on top of this sandwich.
Come on. I thought I was fair.
I didn't say you weren't fair. Those were not words I said. I'm just saying the words I said when the trade happened, you now believe a little bit more. I'm just throwing it out there. I think for me, the favorite part was that like, the first 3 or 4 shots was just Brittany Griner and Bree Jones taking threes. I was like, that's very interesting. I think to add to what Nekias said, having the 2 big lineup, one, you're going to have a great big on the court at almost all times. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to help stabilize them. So to Nekias' post-up point, we can kind of just run offense through BG if we need to. We can run offense through Bree Jones if we need to because they're all-star caliber players. Being able to figure out the minutes with them together is probably the key. And so being able to have that spacing, but also having 2 bigs out there, they can set staggers. You know, you can get more off-ball action. The spacing as far as them being on opposite sides, if something's not open, we can just swing it to one of them and they can go play another action on the other side. So I think some of that side-to-side is good for the Dream, who could struggle at times with their flow. Now, as Nekias said, they have to nail it. And so what's the balance going to be? How much transition are they going to want to do? Like, I mean, you have 2 bigs who can rim run, but also you want to shoot threes. So are you getting the most juice out of the transition opportunities, or are you taking a bunch of threes? Because I remember that Fever game, they took, 68 shots, 40 of them were threes. And I was like, yeah, get them up. But also, let's half court. We can execute a little bit. You know, I think
let's do something else.
You know, let's be easy. So they're going to have to find that balance. But I like the concept, and then I like what it could and should open up for Ali Chagrin and Ryan Howard, as far as them being able to have more room to operate, to be able to play off of someone else, to attack and transition, and kind of have better of a free flow than last year, where things kind of got in the mud, or hey, they're not moving tonight, so you can know exactly what Atlanta Dream you're going to see. So I think I'm intrigued to see how they build the boat. Defensively is where it's going to get interesting. I wonder how teams are going to want to attack. Brittany Griner showed some activity. Bree Jones, how are they going to mix the coverages there? So I'm intrigued to see if they can hold up on that end. But they took a swing, and I like what I've seen so far.
I know it's May, so every single player will tell you that she's in the best shape of her life. But I was really encouraged by how well Bree Jones was running the floor in those transition opportunities. And I wonder if um some of the fact that everyone is firing a three at the first opportunity is because they've never had a green light like this before in their professional careers. And it's preseason. They're like, I'm about to showcase that I can hit this thing. So maybe it'll come down to earth a little bit. But yeah, a lot of my concerns with these signings were I think that Ryan and Leash are two of the best downhill guards in the WNBA. And it's like, let's sign some players that are going to make that really muddy and crowded. But if the fix for that is let's take those players out of what they're most comfortable doing, that's still, I don't know. We all still have our t-shirts from I survived the Walt Hopkins era of the Liberty where everybody was just green light. Everyone was Kia Stokes was taking five threes a night. Like
Let's say you don't like the kiss.
that was just so that is worst case scenario with this team, right? Like that is what my concerns are, but that might just be a trauma response. So I think like it's most likely that this will work out where BG taking three threes a night is a plus for your offense because of just that she's a very, very good shooter. And she's also just a really great passer. So putting her into a little bit more space might just be it might unlock something for a player who's on the back nine of her pro career. So that's just fun. And even if they are just fun, that's an improvement, right? So I guess we can be happy with that. But yeah, I don't know where they're gonna land. I can see them as high as 5 or 6, and I could see them as low as 10. Like it's kind of how all of the pieces come together. And I think that's where Carl Smesko wants to be, is kind of in that chaos.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Kais.
oh, I was just gonna say very quickly on the Atlanta front, like it seems boring to say, like this does just feel like a really big year for Ryan Howard. Like I think a lot of the hire is around like how can we maximize who she is or who she can become? Like how can we put her in better spots? And I am curious to see like how quickly she's able to kind of find her rhythm within this system. And in light of Jordan Canada thinks out for at least the next 2 weeks. I'm glad it wasn't anything more serious than what it was with how it looked. I would imagine more of the on-ball stuff is going to shift to Ryan, and we have seen growth from her as a playmaker. I I guess to the earlier like downhill point, I do want to see like where that lands. 'Cause I think she got better at getting all the way to the rim and drawing more fouls, which is a positive. But the intermediate areas, I'm still a little. Let's get some more growth here. Let's not settle for some of these, or let's get a little cleaner footwork, etc. I think there is real 3 level potential for her, in addition to the playmaking she can provide at what she's 6'2". That
Mhm.
kind of weight, like it's very rare. So like just as a basketball fan, I want to see her put that fully together. And if more spacing and more off ball stuff unlocks that, I'm really excited to see that.
We hate hot takes around here, but my not so hot take for this season is that there's going to be a month that Ryan Howard wins Player of the Month this season because I think she's just going to catch fire and average 30 points in a month and just like get it. I think this is the year that she can put it all together. It might take us a little while to get there, but she's going to have free reign and be in. And that doesn't mean just putting the ball in her hands and saying go to work, but
Mhm.
actually building an offense around her and her skill set, and that's super super exciting. Let's move on to the Washington Mystics, where I am going to follow up on Owen's terrific question with what words of encouragement do you have for Mystics fans going into this season? Because there's a lot there that there are some question marks for sure. There's some young talent, and they had picks 3, 4, and 6. And unfortunately, Georgia Amore will be out for the year with an ACL injury. But Sonia Citron, there were teams across the entire WNBA that were trying to make moves to get into the position to draft Sonia Citron. Unfortunately, she landed with a team that isn't going to be able to utilize her at her best, which is as a two-way wing, as an ancillary piece. I think she'll have a bigger slice of the pie than maybe she needed as a rookie, where there are some like contenders that really are, digging around the waiver wire looking for that kind of skill set.
Hmm.
And Kiki Iriafen, hopefully we're seeing a healthy Shakira Austin. We are just every day hoping that we're seeing a healthy Shakira Austin. There are pieces here. Slim hoping that she could be healthy for a whole season because she really is such a great motivator. But yeah, I think that's the question is like, say, talk that Mystics fan that you know in your life and you love, talk them off the ledge a little bit and give them a little bit of encouragement here.
Well, if you like up-tempo basketball, I think the Washington Mystics are going to be for you. And I think it's going to be somewhat of a continuation from what we saw last year, where we're going to push the ball a little bit more than we have in years past. We're going to get more threes. Like we got the Stephanie Dolson shooting season. Uh, and so like, there's still room for that. So just from a style perspective, I think you're going to enjoy that. And as you mentioned, a lot of the bigs, they go end to end so quickly. If they are able to force a miss or force a turnover, like they are going to put defenses in a bind with how quickly they can go end to end. And again, there's just a lot of young, versatile talent. Like we haven't talked about Emily Inkster yet, who one, she may have finally found a home, which is just cool, as the W is a very hard league to make. And there are a lot of talented players that just don't get the context to kind of be themselves. And so the fact that the Mystics are in this kind of rebuilding situation, it's where Emily has more room to be this four that can sometimes be a three, that can sometimes be a five, that can handle the ball and drive and initiate, but can also screen, but will also switch, and then will also block some shots. And you just get the full breadth of all of that. So like that's exciting to me as a basketball fan. Um and just in general, like Slim on defense is going to be a lot of fun. She's going to get downhill. She's going to run a lot of ball screens, but defensively, she's just going to be a hound and she's going to let you know about it, which is always fun for me. So they're similar to the Connecticut Sun conversation. There's some stuff here.
There's some stuff here. I love that being the tagline for the Washington Mystics. Uh, I think for me with the Mystics, it's just how do they build the boat? I think there's talent here. I think they have a version of depth if they're all healthy,
Mhm.
because they can have double bigs, they can have a bunch of wings and guards that can do different things. So I think there's talent there. It's just what's the movement going to look like offensively? Can you sustain that? What's the defense going to look like? And can they just kind of put together 40 minutes more times than not? Again, this is one of those teams I want to see what it looks like going forward. But I think for Sonya Citron, hey, you can go ahead and do a lot of the defense stuff, but you're gonna have wiggle room offensively to kind of explore and see exactly what you can do to impact our team that way. So watching that development and growth is going to be good. I really liked what Jade Melbourne had put together last year. So what does that look like with maybe some
Mhm.
more opportunity and more run? I mean, if you pick a big, it's part of the reason why I enjoy the Washington Mystics. It's Stephanie Dolson just letting it fly at all times. But you can also go high low. You can run different options. Kiki Iriafen has been very aggressive whenever it looks to as far as I'm going to try and get downhill, get in the paint. But it's just, okay, are they able to generate shots for each other and can they defend consistently at a high level? I think the Mystics are going to be an annoying team to play.
They're going to be so annoying. They're going to be really fun and intriguing. I'm curious. We didn't talk a lot about Aaliyah Edwards yet, who had such a stellar run and unrivaled. It's going to be fascinating for me to watch the ways in which they might pair bigs. Are they going to show a three big look? And in what ways does that indicate from an organizational perspective who they might believe in the most? Because like there is question as to whether Shakira, Aaliyah, and Kiki all are going to have a place on this team moving forward, just because positionally none of those players are a three. Like, let's just be real about it. Those are fours and fives, and they all have so much promise. Shakira just hasn't been able to stay on the floor, but she's just so good when she is healthy. So that's my hope is that we can actually see it in its many different forms this year. All right, final Eastern Conference team. The banal Chicago Sky, just not a lot to talk about here. Just what is there even? I mean, come on. Like, I guess we have to talk about Chicago Sky. Tyler Marsh is in. I'm so excited for the Chicago Sky. Angel Reese, like the defensive potential excites me so much. Again, we got two big questions, but like Angel Reese defensively, the seal. We talk about the rebounding, all this. We talk about her improving her shot. How about the fact that her free throw percentage goes up every year? Just like consistently gets better and better. I'm just so high on her in general. I guess the direction of my question is this. From a front office perspective, they have, by trading the third pick for Ariel Atkins, and just with all of their messaging, they are announcing themselves as we are here, we are ready to go for it. Angel Reese is already that good. I can't blame them for that. However, my question is, are they going to be that good this year? Because the reality of the situation is with 13 teams, in my estimation, 10 of them are like fully going for it, and it'll be a real disappointment if they don't make the playoffs. And that means two teams are not going to make the playoffs, and it's going to be like, whoa, we wanted to be in that final eight, and we are not. Are the Chicago Sky as good as they want themselves to be in year two? Because they are situated very well for the future, but I have some questions about if it's going to click immediately. And if anyone can do it, I do think it'll be Tyler Marsh, who has deserved this opportunity for a while.
That he has, I would say, like I'm closer to yes than no on that front. Like I think the Sky will be a playoff team. I guess what the expectation is would be my question there as far as the what they want to be. If they are pushing for a home court seed, like that feels rich for me in year one, just because they do still like you're asking for more on ball usage for Ariel Atkins, or just in general pumping up the scoring volume for her. Like you're asking for a lot of internal growth from Angel and Camilla on both ends of the floor, which I think both are going to be better. And what we've seen in the preseason is that they are both better than what they were last year. But to crack that top four, like that is knocking one of the Liberty, the Lynx, the Aces, the Fever, or two of those three plus the Fever and the Storm out of that spot. And so like that feels rich for me, at least heading into the season. But I believe in the defense. Like I'm glad you started with what Angel's been doing defensively. Like I think she was or should have been like on the outer skirts of all defense conversations last year.
Mhm.
She follows this up with defensive player of the year and unrivaled, which obviously different brand of basketball, etc. But she is defending some really good players in that league. We get to the preseason and she's immediately matched up with Fee, and Fee didn't have a lot of fun in some of those matchups. And so just her activity, her comfort on the perimeter in general, like that excites me. And if Camilla is now better conditioned, etc., she's more active defensively at the level or a little bit closer to the level of screens now. You have players flying around on the back end. On top of that, they're forcing turnovers to the degree that they did in the preseason. Hey, like this could be top six, top five defense. And if the offense is good enough, which is where some of the spacing stuff has been intriguing, I'm yapping a lot, so I'm not going to go into all that. Like, I don't think like finishing sixth is out of the question for them.
Okay, took us on a journey there. I didn't know where you're gonna land that ship, big dog. But I would say to piggyback your point, I've loved the defense, and I think when you think about what Indiana did with their roster to add and bolster Caitlin Clark, I know a lot of people are wondering why did Chicago do that. I'm like, I think they believe in Angel Reese a whole lot, and so I think they would like to kind of accelerate this and make themselves a destination as things move forward. Angel Reese's defense, I think she really benefited from the time at Unrivaled. Some of the things I'm seeing from her on the perimeter, as far as like, hey, drive, I'm going to stunt and recover. Oh, Courtney Williams coming for a pull up. I'm going to be here and stunt to try and take that away. Oh, we're in rotation. I'm going to fly to the corner. I'm going to pressure the ball. Like that kind of stuff is where I'm like, hey, there's a lot of juice I think that could be tapped here. And I
Mm-hmm.
think they've been doing little things as far as with Cardoso. So, hey, you're in a drop, but if it gets too deep, just take the switch and we'll figure it out and switch out. And that's very, very good. Then you add people like Ariel Atkins and Rebecca Allen, really good screen navigators, really good ball pressure. And this is a team that oftentimes in the preseason has looked like they're defending on a string, which is good. Like, I mean, they played Minnesota. That's not necessarily the most fun team to play on that end of the floor. And so to be able to hold up in that way is a positive. I think offensively, one, Courtney Vandersloot just really wanted to play point guard again very badly. Just cool, let me direct traffic and make passes and hoop that way. But I like the way that they are trying to work to move Angel around the board a little bit. Spacing her, going high, low, putting her at the elbow, creating space for her to drive either way. Like, I think that's a positive for them. Sloop being able to direct them in the half court, I think, is really key. But they can do different things. Like, you have two bigs, you wonder about the spacing, but if one is in action, the other one's on the other side, back to the dream point, we can just flow into something with the other one and kind of play off each other that way and still feel good about what we have. And then, when you go to one big, they still have Elizabeth Williams. Like, they have solid pieces. And then I feel like they have a little bit of depth where people are going to understand their role as far as having, Rachel Banham shooting or the activity of on your area. Like, I think there's good stuff, and they're building an identity. So I think I'm high on this guy.
I love it.
Right. Oh, that right.
Bars.
There you go. We'll clip it. I love all the conversation about Angel's defense and also just the fact that last year she was, like Nekias said, like a very, very good defender that I don't think got talked about enough. Obviously, probably the toughest player in the league to control the discourse around, and that's probably part of taking away from what she does so well. But now that you added in that she's like a built-in break starter when she's grabbing those rebounds or when she's grabbing long rebounds when she's spaced out on switches and then she can just start running the other way. That's super exciting. Her just the confidence that Tyler Marsh, and there was a quote floating around the other day that he's instilling in her to just go out there and do everything is really exciting. I do think I might have some questions still about the shooting. And Steve, like you were talking about the spacing and related to Atlanta, but that's where everyone's got the green light. And they brought in more shooting than they had last year. But can you keep defenses honest enough that you can move around the ball on the perimeter to the other side to reestablish for another big? Or are they just going to double down regardless of who you go into the paint to with some of these lineups out there?
It means Kia Nurse has to make shots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're capable. I think that they have capable shooters. But I do like how Atkins fits with this team too. Vandersloot, I think that one of the biggest takeaways from Unrivaled, and obviously so much more space out there, but look at what Angel could do when she gets an easy entry pass and bucket when she was playing with Chelsea Gray. And now you've got Courtney, who will be so happy if she doesn't take a shot but has 10 dimes to her bigs. And that's a good day at the office. So I don't think that could be overstated enough. But that also goes back to the keeping defenses honest defensively. But I'm with you guys. I really like this Sky team. And it's exciting to like this Sky team because there are just so many likable players on this squad. So they'll be fun to watch.
It'll be fun to watch, fun to talk to. Like they just feel more, the word I use in the article, they just feel more organized on both ends of the floor. And I think just having that kind of structure on both ends is going to be helpful for everyone.
Yeah. I think this is a good place to wrap up our first half preview. That takes us through the Eastern Conference teams, which I'm realizing as we get through them that Sandy Brondello is the only returning coach in the Eastern Conference. So there's going to be a lot of new looks for her as she meets a bunch of these coaches for the Commissioner's Cup and chats with them a little bit. But we are going to be back tomorrow with the Western Conference. So please stay tuned for that.